The U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement still needs approval from federal lawmakers in all three countries in order to take effect. President Trump has said he will withdraw the U.S. from NAFTA, putting the pressure on Congress to accept the new deal. All the issues we've covered so far also factored into the midterm elections. Pundits and politicos speculated throughout the year whether Democrats could flip seats in a state that President Trump won in 2016. Congressional races began to take shape early in the year, with some candidates declaring their runs in January.
I am a candidate for the office of United States Senate from Arizona.
This has not been a state that's been kind to Democrats in recent years. You look at the polling right now, it does look like a Democratic wave is forming, but there's a lot of time between now and November, and a lot could happen.
Fast forward to the summer. As we neared the primary, we heard from the candidates running for governor.
I'm running because the truth matters, and we're not being told the truth in some very critical areas.
The people who are running our state government are not putting the people of Arizona first.
They will never have a governor more committed to public education, public schools than me.
I have always supported any effort that would bring more money to our public schools.
Well, what's important to me is quality education that's accessible for all of our kids.
And the Republican and Democratic parties began to lay out their strategies for the general election.
So we're able to hone in on the messaging that Arizonans care about and the issues that they care about, so that we can go then and talk to them and deliver the correct message to their door and let them know that the Republican values are still the values that Arizonans hold dear here.
If Democrats don't quite see that shift this election cycle, will there be a look in the mirror and ask, what do we need to do moving forward?
Well, we've been doing that for several cycles, and we have been reaching to every corner of the state. The party is very diverse, and we want all folks in our party and all Arizonans to get ahead. And what we're seeing is that the messaging we're doing today about Arizona values and working families and everyday Arizonans is really resonating.
Some of the discussion focused on how the candidates could win over moderates after the primary.
They have to show the party base that they are a committed, either conservative or progressive, and then they also have to leave wiggle room to then show the broader audience of moderates in each party and of independents that they are best situated to represent them.
Then you look at the all-important moderates, the swing voters, they actually are, education is their number one, so they look just like liberals. And then also with Trump, with favorability, they have a very unfavorable opinion of the president.
In August, partisan politics briefly came to a halt as Arizona and the country mourned the passing of Senator John McCain. Governor Ducey would go on to appoint John Kyle to McCain's open seat, calling the longtime lawmaker back to Congress.
Arizona needs someone who can hit the ground running on day one, and that's John Kyle.
Kyle agreed, adding that he would only serve through the end of the year.
I left the Senate in 2013 after having served in it for 18 years, in addition to 8 years in the House. And there comes a point when you say, I've done enough.
Is there a blue wave out here tonight?
After the primary, speculation intensified whether a blue wave would sweep the polls and push back against the Trump administration.
Now, I'm sorry, I have too many people walking into my headquarters every day and calling us on the phone and saying, I haven't been active for a long time. I need to get active. I need to help. And they're being motivated by what's happening at the federal level.
And we have Democrats walking into our office every day changing their registration because they say their party has gone too far left.
Through a series of debates hosted by Arizona Public Media, voters heard from candidates running for governor.
Doug Ducey's quick reversal with Red for Ed is an example of him being a follower, not a leader.
We are not asking to abolish ICE like Mr. Garcia is.
Candidates for Congressional District 2.
I think that if Ann is elected to this seat, we will see tax reform roll back.
She has said she would privatize Social Security.
And candidates for Congressional District 3.
I believe that education at the bottom line is the short-term, long-term solution to economic development.
We need to provide resources in both the urban and rural areas that are going to be beneficial for our youth.
But the race that captivated most was the neck-and-neck run between Representatives Martha McSally and Kyrsten Sinema for U.S. Senate.
I voted to protect people with pre-existing conditions.
Healthcare is the #1 issue that people talk to me about.
And while they're concerned about the increasing costs of health care, they're even more concerned about what's at stake and what they could lose.
While we heard from candidates, we also heard from voters
In this district, the people in the middle decide
about the issues compelling their choices.
For small business, I think we need somebody in Washington that has a voice.
Comprehensive immigration reform is part and parcel of a border security package.
Motivating young adults to go to the polls.
I think students are, especially nowadays, are really not wanting to be put into boxes, and so they're really wanting to be active and learn more about these policies and stand up against specific issues instead of actually like a party.
Challenges with getting Latinos to cast ballots.
We're talking about a very young population who already is sort of prone to non-voter habits. And so, coupling it with the youth vote makes it even more sort of a non-voting population.
And why, regardless of demographics, voting is a right worth exercising.
So many people in our world don't have the opportunity to vote.
It is a privilege and a responsibility.
In the home stretch to Election Day, Arizona did look more like a battleground state, with visits from the president and other high-profile politicians.
Donald J. Trump.
Anytime there are high-profile politicians that come to a state, what it does for the candidates is that they're supporting is increase their exposure.
Senator Bernie Sanders.
That is important because it gets them local exposure in a variety of outlets. That's one of the reasons why people particularly appreciate presidential visits, but any high-profile politician that comes in, it helps.
And following Election Day, it would take several more days to determine key races and the direction voters want Arizona to take.
I don't think that we're going to know, maybe even after the 2020 election, whether there's a true blue wave in Arizona. The Democrats did very well this time. I wonder if it is a reaction to President Trump. I wonder if the same people who voted for him but wouldn't tell us in 2016, this time around did not vote for Republicans because of him and also won't tell us.
As the year winded down, Arizonans learned they would be represented by not one, but two women in the U.S. Senate. Democratic Senator-elect Sinema and Republican Representative McSally, whom Governor Ducey appointed to succeed John Kyle in January. In 2020, voters will decide if she should keep the seat and finish out the late Senator McCain's term.